Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, just need to draw your attention to the fact that unfortunately, due to some technical issues, we're not able to stream this evening's meeting live. So we are, however, recording the meeting and it will be uploaded later. So we would prefer it if people could follow the etiquette that you would expect for all live meetings. Unusually, for those that have experience of the microphones here in the council chamber, they're what's known as open. So that means that rather than being placed in a queue, when you turn on your microphone, which is the small, for those of you that are new, there's a little face. If you press the face button, your microphone will light up and you will immediately be able to speak. If I could please ask that everybody follows the etiquette of only speaking when the chair indicates that it's your turn to speak and raising your hand in order to join a queue. That would be the same whether you're joining remotely or in the room. Thank you. I really appreciate your help.
Thank you, Kirsty. Without any ado, can I ask if there are any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not aware of any.
Are there any apologies noted in the room or online? No, I see that all members are here. Okay, item 2. Are there any declarations of interest for the agenda that we have in today? No, none. I hear none. So there are no declarations of interest noted for this meeting. Okay, now this will be an interesting one because I wasn't there, but the minutes, item 3, the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of February 2023. Does anyone have any notes or corrections to be made to those minutes? No. Do we need to have these minutes approved?
Apologies, Chair, I completely forgot to have a set of minutes for you to sign. So in future meetings, I would normally slide a copy over to you to be signed, but I can do that outside of the meeting.
Okay, but are we happy for me to sign those minutes as a true and fair record of the? I'm getting nods in the room. Okay, I will sign those as soon as the meeting is done. Okay. Okay, thank you. Moving swiftly on. So we have just when we get into the substantial items of the meeting, we have 4 items. We have the audit, the post-audit statement of accounts 2019-20. We need to consider these accounts and approve the statement of accounts and approve the management response to the matters arising. Then we have 2 items about the internal audit, the annual opinion for 2022-23 and the progress report for 23-24. I think we've have a request to swap those 2 around. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Fine. We will do that. So item 4. So the statement of accounts 29-20, which seems it is indeed a couple of years ago. But can I possibly hand over to the head of finance and section 151 officer, Andrew Vallance?
Thank you. Members will recall who were at the last meeting that you did look at those accounts again for the 2nd or 3rd time at the last meeting, and I'm pleased to say the accounts were finally signed off in Adele's final week here. So it's one of her targets before she left. So as people know, they were delayed primarily because we had a series of objections to those accounts. Delight are here to talk about if anyone has any questions on those objections or the process. But I'm pleased to say that they are now signed off. It's not uncommon for local authorities to have their accounts a year or 2 late at the minute. Nationally, there's now, I think, over 1,000 sets of accounts that are now late. And Delight will be able to add further to the reasons why these accounts are delayed. I'm pleased to say the objections, none of them were actually found to have any major substance to them. But the process did take a long time to actually go through them and agree that most of them that they were unfounded. Really happy to take any questions. I've got Martin Stevens on the call, who is the technical accountant who could answer detailed questions on the accounts. or Benjamin from Deloitte can answer questions from the external auditor's points of view.
Thank you. I appreciate, for those who are new, they're sort of historic because they're from the first year of the previous 4 years of the council. And if you were on this committee before, like me, you've seen it all before. So I'm just interested in what the position is with the following 3 years of accounts, which are sort of backed up behind this one, and what the timescale is on those, just I suppose a rough idea. Also bearing in mind, I understand that Deloitte are planning to leave this market, the local authority audit market, and whether that has any bearing on the next 3 years of accounts on their completion and sign off. And just one thing, I said that, if you were here before, you'd seen everything, but I noticed in 4.5 of the report, it talks about an unreconciled balance of £1 million. I think it says it's, or it suggests it's not really material, but I was just surprised to see something that I didn't remember seeing before. So does that imply that, the latest work has still found 1 or 2 odd things in completing the accounts? Thank you.
I can start answering. So the current year, the year just finished, 22-23, we should have a set of accounts within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Ideally, they should have been ready by the middle of this week, but the very tight deadlines, the government brought forward the deadline from the end of July to the end of May. And given the very limited resources we've got, we've not been able to meet, unlikely to meet the deadline by Wednesday, but they should be ready, and you will have them at the next audit committee to look through, unaudited obviously at that stage. In terms of where we are, 2021 and 21-22, I'm sure Benjamin can update you on Deloitte's estimated time for finishing the audits of those accounts. And in terms of the query you had, the technical query you had in the accounts, I'm sure Martin will be able to provide the answer to that.
So thank you, Andrew. Taking in turn with respect to the 2021 audit, there's quite a bit of work that has already occurred on that. There are a number of areas and questions we are still working through with management on that, and we are aiming to be in a position to sign in September. That's the target and what we have staffed to in the summer and resourcing our team to sort of come in once you're through finishing this year's close process, and then to move on to 22. With respect to exiting the market, we are contracted through to completing the 23 accounts. The way the procurement works, it's for a series of years, and we are there in place through those, and so would remain committed to that, and we'd recruited in our team as people who left, but we've got gaps to strengthen in order to be able to continue and deliver for that. I think that probably finishes my area, and I'll pass to Martin.
Okay, thanks, Benjamin. On paragraph 4.5, the unreconciled amount, if you think of the volume of transactions that the council has with income coming in every year, there are, I would say, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of transactions, and not all of them are clear. And previously the team couldn't identify where the income related to, but after a lot of work, it was cleared in the 2021 accounts. So whilst it's an unreconciled amount for the 1920 accounts, it is reconciled for the 2021 and brought into the ledger appropriately. And this was after discussion with the auditors as well. So it's one of these where we get income from lots of different sources. Identifying them is difficult, but it was cleared for 2021.
Councillor Mark Wilson.
Thank you. Can I just ask a follow-up question on those reconciling items? Just broadly, were there a small number of large items or a large number of small items?
I'm sorry, it was before my time, but what I can do is find out and feed back to the committee.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay.
Andrew Balance.
Yeah. Just to say, we did have new auditors appointed for the financial year 23-24 onwards, who are Grant Thornton. I have met with them. I'm probably going to meet with them every quarter for this year. And they'll probably start coming to audit committee in about a year's time once Deloitte have made further progress with the outstanding audits. But there's very little point at the minute having two sets of audits here. But we will keep them updated during the year, and then they'll gradually take over.
Okay. Any other questions on the accounts and the makeup of the accounts at all? I have a question. If no one else wants to ask a question, so can I just ask a question about the property valuations and the movement? It's the movement in the fixed assets, in particular property, plant and equipment. It does appear that it's assets under construction. It does seem to be a major part of that, and I just wondered, do we know what they are? This is possibly a question for Martin Stevens. I'll start with you, Martin Stevens. Sorry, sorry, but
and again, it was before my time, and it will be one of these that I will have to feed back. But obviously, the council has a capital program every year, and when assets aren't complete by the end of the year, they stay in assets under construction before transferring across. But I can give you a listing as at March 2020 and give you details, but I don't have them to hand at the moment.
okay.
But to say, it's highly likely it was Braywick Leisure Centre
Right.
at that time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Open in autumn 2020.
That makes sense. Braywick Leisure Centre, of course. We have to remember this is 2019-20 that we're looking at. That's fine. Okay. Any other questions on the accounts on this item? Okay. Before we move on to the next item, and any questions? Also, we need to look at the management responses to the matters raised in the external audit reports. Any questions on those matters arising at all? Kirsty, am I missing any questions that are on? Okay. Okay. Andrew Valence, can I just ask, just a formal thing, what do we need to do? What do we need to approve at this point? Approve the responses, yes. Okay, if there are no questions, can we approve the management responses to as raised in the report? Agreed. 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 I'm seeing agreed, and I'm seeing no objections. Then those are approved. Excellent. Okay. Right. So if we can move on to well, actually not item 5. It's item 6, which is in the agenda, which is internal audit progress reporting. Then we'll move them back to item 5. So internal audit progress report 2023-24. Probably best if I hand over to Lisa Fryer, who's from Southwest Audit Partnership Internal Audit.
Thank you very much, Chair. There's a slight correction here. I will be presenting the Q4 22-23 progress report, and that will lead us nicely into the annual opinion report. Our next meeting in July, that's when I'll deliver the Q1 progress report. At this point in time, would have only been about 6 weeks of the new year, so there wouldn't be that much to report. Okay, so if you turn to page 276, so this is our regular progress report, and as we said in the training that we've just delivered, there are 2 main reasons to produce these progress report. The first is so that the audit committee can get assurance that the audit plan that's been approved is being delivered, that good progress is being made, so that plan will get delivered over the year. The second important reason for producing the progress report is to draw the audit committee's attention to areas of weakness and in need of improvement. So if you are looking now at page 277, you will see an overall summary here of progress made. In terms of our assurance report, 7 reviews were completed in the period, and the opinions were across all of our ratings. Further into the report, we'll look in more detailed at the limited and the no assurance reports. I'm pleased to be able to report that the internal audit plan is now substantially complete. At the time of writing, there were just 2 audits remaining in progress. There were 2 high corporate risks reported during the period, firstly being in business continuity and the second in Section 106 agreements. And again, we'll look at those in more detail as we move into the report. As we said in the training, where there's a high corporate risks, we report those both to senior management and to the audit committee. If we could move on now on to page 279, also reflected back on the training, we're talking about the plan being risk-based. So a demonstration of this is to have a look at the strategic risk register and map our audit work against that. As you can see, at Q4, the end of the year, we're able to demonstrate good coverage against the strategic risk register. It would be unlikely that we would cover all of the strategic risks in one internal audit year, but we have covered the majority. I think there's just a couple there that we haven't looked at, but they will be picked up in this year's plan. Just to let you know that the strategic risk register has recently undergone a revamp. So what you're looking at here is the risk register as it was through 22-23. But we've mapped this year's plan to the new strategic risk register. If we could now move on to Appendix B. So Appendix B is where we give summary information of the limited assurance reports that have been finalised in the period. So this time around, there are 5 summaries for you, and you have got all of the key findings. On the team site that Andrew will get you all access to, you will there have access to the full reports that we issued. So the full summary and the action plans with timeframes and responsibilities assigned for each of those areas of weakness where action has been agreed. I want to focus on those 2 audits that had the high corporate risks. So the first one is on page 284, and that is business continuity management. As you can see there were 13 findings in total, 4 of which were our highest priority 1 ratings. So this is why we've categorised it as a high corporate risk. The council itself has had business continuity in its strategic risk register, and a project to review and update arrangements started in 2020. at the time that we did our audit work, we found that there was no fully complete and approved business continuity plan in place. As well as that, a number of services hadn't completed their own responsibilities in relation to business continuity, and in some cases, they hadn't finished a plan for their service. There was also no training that had been undertaken in relation to business continuity. The findings have been readily accepted by management and an action plan agreed, with actions agreed to be implemented by the end of this calendar year. We will then follow up a formal follow-up review, obtaining evidence that those actions have been implemented. We'll do that during 23-24, probably in Q4. The next internal audit, the high corporate risk, is section 106 agreements, and you can find a summary of that on page 286. Here you can see that we were unable to give any assurance of an adequate controlled framework being in place. And so therefore we have concluded that this one is a high corporate risk given the council's financial position and priority for maximising income. To summarise, there was no formally agreed policy or process to ensure that Section 106 payments are consistently recorded and collected in line with agreements in place. And as well as this, there wasn't a process to identify when Section 106 milestones were reached. So at the time of the audit, invoices were raised once a developer contacted us and to request one. As with business continuity, all of the findings have been readily accepted and an action plan has been put in place. And we will schedule a follow-up audit in this financial year to be able to report back to Audit Committee to give assurance that risk has been reduced. Turning to page 287, you can see the summary of the follow-up audit work that we did. This was on cash and bank reconciliation. The original audit was carried out by the previous auditors at Wokingham Borough Council. We're pleased to say that we found progress had been made in relation to all of the actions, and those remaining in progress we will monitor through our issue tracking process that we have in place. Appendix D, starting on page 288, gives you a full list of all of the audits that we carried out over the year. I'm pointing that out for information. And on page 289, starting with the SIL review, those are the audits that have been completed since the last internal audit progress update. There are, as I said, there are 2 audits still to be completed, and you'll see those on page 290, and I will include those in my next progress report in July. Finally, on this page, you can see that there's a section on deferred audits. Generally, these have been because of timing issues where it just wasn't appropriate to carry out the audit at that time. And those audits have been rescheduled to be carried out in this financial year. The time released has been used to carry out grant reviews. When we drew up the audit plan early in 22, we only knew about a few grant audits, and that list grew over the year. So we moved our time across to deal with those. I'll stop there and see if anybody's got any questions.
Councillor Suzanne Cross. Sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you for that. I just had a couple of questions because forgive me, I'm new as well. The high corporate risks, business continuity S106, you said there's some action plans. where can we find those to review ahead of the next meeting?
Yeah, so on the completion of an audit, we issue a report to the service. So as well as the summary information that you've got included here, there's an appendix which gives more details of all the actions that came out of that audit, and then an agreement to put that in place when and responsibility is assigned to an individual and a time frame set. So that makes up the full report, and all of those reports will be accessible to you on your team site. I just don't think you've got the link yet.
I've just sent the links.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, councillor, Suzanne Cross again.
Sorry, just a follow-up question, because the seal, the community infrastructure levy was noted on the summary of issues of substantial, and you referred to that. Could you elaborate on that, or again, is that on the teams? Is there more information on the seal?
Full report will be on the team site. Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councillor Simon Bond.
Of the two you mentioned that, I can't remember the term you used, but were high profile, I thought the Section 106 was the more concerning, but that's purely on the basis that the council got through the pandemic and the first lockdown. So that was a good practical test of business continuity. In one of the reports, I think it's on the one on debt, it says something like that some process hasn't been followed because of lack of resources. And I wondered if that's the case quite often, that you're in effect saying to a service offered by the council, you really should be doing this to make sure it's done properly. And they say, well, yes, we know that, but we just don't have the budget or the people. So is that a sort of common issue? Also on that one, I got a bit confused about the numbers. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at the full report, the numbers of debt. You know, I divided the total debt by the numbers, and just wondered what sort of debt was being talked about. But I guess that'll be in the full report. The other one that caught my eye was on homelessness strategy, where it mentioned something hadn't been reported fully to the relevant committee. I know one of these reports has been published with committee papers, and I'm personally keen on transparency where these things can be put into the public domain. I think that's good. So I wondered if that one might be published in the next agenda papers for the Health and Wellbeing Committee for everyone to have a look at. Yeah, that's from me.
So your first question was, is resources a limiting factor common to the audit work that we carry out? And I would say that over the year that we've been doing the audit work, that has been a factor that we've seen you know, on several occasions. And do appreciate that resources are indeed limited, very limited. But I guess the point of our audit report is, you know, we've got the priority ratings there. We're saying what we feel is the most important things. You can see that. So I guess it's about making the best use of resources. On the debtors one, are you happy to look at the full report? Was there anything sort of specific? Yeah. And then on homelessness audit, you would like the full audit report to go to the Health and Wellbeing?
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned it or something like that.
Yeah.
That's appropriate, and then everybody will
I have to defer to Kevin for that one.
I'd be more than happy to take that to the Health and Wellbeing Board. There's been a verbal update at every Health and Wellbeing Board on homelessness. But I think the point of this audit was the detail that can cover in just 10 minutes. I think putting the audit report out would be a very helpful thing to do. I'll take that forward.
Yes, so Councillor Beaumonge.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at
Yes, again, the community infrastructure levy and the fact that you were able to give substantial assurance to that process, yet, yeah, with the Section 106 contributions systems, there was no assurance at all. And it's on the face of it, you think, well, these things are very similar in terms of they're both involve developer contributions. So I was quite surprised that there's such a different or disparity in the systems there. I don't know if it is because it's handled by different teams or if it's more because of the bespoke nature of Section 106 agreements. I don't know if you had anything to add on that particular point.
It's quite right that they are closely related, aren't they? Yeah, and still that there was a comprehensive in place that was and there is it's different people that was there. Just your is on right, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm happy to step in, Chair, if that's...
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Sorry, I was looking at you, but I was looking at you on screen. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. The camera was looking at someone else, so I wasn't aware. But so our SIL processes are all managed through a system called Exacom, which is effectively a case management system for SIL, and that was introduced when the Community Infrastructure Levy was introduced to the council. The intent has always been to move our Section 106 agreements onto that system, and that's a process that's now starting, which will hopefully bring the same level of assurance to our Section 106 work. But obviously, as you could imagine, Section 106 agreements have been around for a long time, and therefore there's a big backlog of moving all the historic agreements onto the system and therefore being able to provide that assurance. So we will get there, and all new Section 106s are going on to Exacom to allow us to kind of assure that process. I think the other issue has been that SIL is managed effectively entirely within the SIL team. The Section 106 process moves between different teams, so planning, legal, and the kind of SIL team, and therefore actually now there is a process going on sort of alongside obviously the action plan that's come out of the audit to set out a process to make clear the roles and responsibilities of each of the teams through that process and have a clear written process, which again should effectively cover some of the actions that are set out in the audit report.
Any other questions from in the room or online? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. I think this report is really interesting and useful. It's all of the reports that we've had from SWEP have been really useful throughout the last 12 months because they've highlighted where processes can be improved, where they can be added to and enhanced. And I think that the work that SWEP have done over the last 12 months has been invaluable in improving the way the council has been able to operate and to highlight areas that need improvement. And I'm sure that you'll continue to do so over the next period of time. So I'm looking forward to seeing reports come through over the next several months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Any other questions? I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. The first question is, I suppose, in terms of your remit and the, if you like, the audit plan, as it were, and in terms of what you're looking at. Forgive me that these might be silly questions, but I couldn't quite see this next year's plan, although I know that maybe that's coming up in the next item. But just can I just ask about, first of all, the the ratings that you have. So for each individual item, it's nicely explained about, the red, amber, green rating. But is there a broad formula that you use in order to determine the overall rating of an audit? I've had another question, but actually, if I just leave it there for now.
So when we produce an internal audit report and give an assurance rating, you'd like to know if there's a formula that decides that rating. There isn't, I have to say, there isn't a strict formula. I think it is judgment dependent on the priorities and then the number of priorities. And it refers back to the risk that you're looking at. So it's how fundamental it is against that sort of risk under review. And you have to look at it in the whole. One audit might have just maybe a couple of priority ones and that will be it, but that actually covers pretty much the whole risk that you're looking at. Another might have one priority one, but a whole load of priority 2s and 3s, and then collectively that covers pretty much the risks that you're looking at. So it's hard to have a formula in that case. So it is judgmental, but I would also say that we work with management every step of the way. We have regular meetings to make sure that the judgments that we're reaching are correct ones, that we haven't missed evidence. And then when we produce a first draft of the report, we have a closeout meeting again with the people involved to make sure that our understanding is correct and that judgment is fair.
Thank you, Lisa Pride. Just on that, actually, in terms of, I just wonder if I could have a follow-up question on that. So I get from what you're saying that there is an element of judgment there. In terms of that judgment, I mean, this is why I was just looking at a couple of the audit reports and just saying, well, okay, how is that a red and how is that an amber and things like that. But is there? When I look at the ratings overall, I mean, just to me as a new person, I suppose some of them look quite shocking in terms of what we've got there. Are they? How would you say we compare? Is it to? Are we worse than other councils at the moment, or are we sort of similar? Is it that that we are looking at the right things? Sorry for making that such a general question, but I'm just trying to get an appreciation of, look, is this something to be overly worried about? Is this normal? I mean, just the ratings. These for the audits that we have. There's one red and lots of ambers, and not much less than that.
The focus areas where management have concerns. So we are expecting to give limited assurances. So we shouldn't be alarmed when you get the summaries of limited assurances. That said, this year there were 3 high corporate risks. They are significant findings, aren't they, around those areas? So that is a concern. So if I was to benchmark, I would say, probably that is below average, whereas, amongst some of our other partners at the moment. But it's really important to set that in context that, management have been coming forward, members have been coming forward and identifying with us the areas they want us to look at. It seems to me it's a council that does want to improve. It recognises there are areas, of weakness, but wants help to improve. We haven't had a single audit this year when we've presented at a closeout meeting that first draft report where anyone said, no, I don't agree with that. It's usually the other way around. They've readily agreed to it. I mean, it will be an important year this year, 23-24, where we will start to follow up some of these limited assurances. And we really want to see, you know, that these agreed actions have been implemented so that we can all be assured that the risk is now reduced. So it is an important year this year to be able to demonstrate that.
Thank you. That's very much answered my question. Any? Yes, Kevin McDaniel. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just echo Ms. Pryor's comments there. As a management team, we want the audit function to focus on those where we don't feel confident around the services. Councillor Bond's already identified that there's our resources are a challenge for us. Therefore, we want to spend them in the most effective way. And I think the point is around making sure that the action plans are then delivered is the proof of the pudding that we're serious about making the council better. So I'd echo this, and actually I welcome the challenge that SWEP bring to us as a service from the external view, and long may they continue.
Thank you. Yes.
Just to confirm that SWAP's plan for 23-24 came to the last meeting.
Right, okay. Yeah. Which I now have access to. Thank you. Any further questions?
Thank you, Chair. So the next paper is the internal audit opinion for 23-24. If you turn to page 255, you will see the headlines of this opinion. So this is our first opinion since being appointed as your internal auditors. And we've got a summary of the work there. I'll go through that now, and then I'll pull out some other areas of this opinion report. So, as we've said, we've reported 3 high corporate risks in the year. We've just talked about 2 of those, business continuity and Section 106 agreements, and there was a third, contract management. Contract management was identified by the audit committee and senior management as an area of concern. Also, we were asked to put it into the plan, and that was the third high corporate risk. And the service is currently working on a contract management framework put in place to make the improvements needed, and a follow-up audit will take place in Q4 of this internal audit plan. As we've just seen in the progress report, I'm pleased to say that the internal audit plan for last year is now substantially delivered. And we've touched on the importance of follow-ups. So we're expecting to produce limited assurance reports, but then we need to see that those actions have been implemented. So that's where the follow-ups come in. We carried out 3 follow-up audits in the year, and overall results demonstrated that action had been taken to mitigate the risks reported. So that's a real positive. The content of the next couple of pages covers the purpose of this report and then the 3 lines model that we've just looked at in the training. So I'm going to move on to page 258, and that covers the annual opinion itself. So as you can see there in our summary at the top, on the balance of our 22-23 audit work, a limited assurance opinion has been offered based on the work carried out in the year. The main source of evidence for that work is the internal audit assurance work, but we've also considered our grant certification work, our follow-ups and advisory work. The audit work, I believe, over the year has represented good coverage in terms of strategic risks and corporate priorities, as well as covering those important core areas such as finance and governance. And we've also done work across the operational areas such as adults, children's and place. Before we look at the opinion in a little bit more detail, wanted to provide some contextual information. We have already touched on that. So we were appointed a year ago, and I have to say, I feel from the start management have been open with internal audit. they've put forward recommendations for audit work where they're being concerned. And where we have come up with action plans, they have been readily agreed. So this approach has led to 70% of our reports being the lower end of our assurance levels. I would expect to have limited assurance opinion reports, but this is a particularly high percentage. And most significantly, we have reported 3 high corporate risks this year. The council is self-aware and understands that more needs to be done. We said that findings have been readily accepted and action plans agreed. The follow-up work we've carried out does demonstrate that agreed action to mitigate exposure to risk has taken place, and that we judge to be very important. So as the final paragraph sums up, based on the evidence this year, the opinion is limited, but there is good reason to show that there is a desire for improvement at the council and that progress will continue. I'll leave it there. The report provides some further detail and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you for that. And can I open the floor to questions? If there are any questions either in the room or online? Councillor Singh, were you asking to speak? Oh, okay. Are there any questions online? No. Okay. Well, yes. So, Councillor Mark Wilson.
Just picking up the point about the contract management, I'm relatively new to this area, so just wondering if possibly somebody from the management team could just give their perspective on that and give some context maybe following the internal audit comment.
In the absence of anybody for whom this is their day job, I'm happy to pick it up, Councillor Wilson. So what's been clear is that the council has a number of contracts of varying sizes across all different directorates, and a range of different approaches have been taken to the procurement, the contract management approach, and the process of renewing those contracts. And the ambition of the very small procurement team is that we're able to share the best practice. And so the framework is looking to do 3 things. It's looking to ensure that all the significant contracts are on a contract register that's available for scrutiny for everybody, so we know what's due, so we can plan the workload coming up. That when we engage in contracts, we have the appropriate management approach for contract management tied to the key performance indicators. So some good practice around the right sort of devices. And the final piece is making sure that those respective contracts feed into the risk register, whether that's directorate or corporate, in such a way that the appropriate scrutiny is taking place around performance over and above the contract management activity. So it's three streams of work being led by the procurement team, who are, as is typical in our council, are effectively there to set a framework up for other services to take and use, rather than one team owning all of the contracts. So there will then be a rollout of training and activity across the piece, and that's what the action plan is looking to deliver. Hope that helps.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on the internal audit opinion? No, I don't see any questions, and there are no more questions online. I don't see any questions. Can I then just say, first of all, thank you to Lisa Fryer for, first of all, the work that you've done, which looks really, really thorough, and also thank you for the training for those of us who were here before. Yes, thank you for being so open and having to answer all these questions immediately here. And also, I did note that it's good to hear that the council, or sort of the officers here are very responsive and open, and that certainly seems very, very positive. So thank you very much. And I think, am I right, that we can then, that's duly noted, the report duly noted. And so moving on to the final item on the agenda, the work programme. Andrew, is this something that, sorry, is this something that that I should hand over to you on? I noticed, I'm just noting that we mentioned something about the statement of accounts 2020-21, that maybe that might be something that's next meeting, but do you want to just give a quick introduction on this?
Yes, so there should be a progress report from Lisa at most of these meetings going forward. The next meeting will have the draft accounts for 22-23. Hopefully September may have the audited accounts for 2021, based on what Benjamin said earlier. I think there'll be a risk management paper on the 20th of July as well. About every 6 months you'll get some sort of risk management paper as well. So we will populate this and we can circulate it around. And obviously, if there's anything members wish to put on this timescale, timelines as well, any areas if they wish to discuss it with us, then we can put additional items on if you see fit, subject to chairman's agreement, obviously.
Any question? Yes, Councillor Mark Wilson.
Sorry, just a question of clarification. So am I right in thinking that each of the internal audit reports for a quarter would include both the current work done and a follow-up, and like as many follow-ups as are needed going back over previous quarters? So it's a sort of like almost a rolling update. Thank you.
Yes, I saw him come up. So Benjamin Sheriff, did you have anything that you wanted to? So Benjamin Sheriff from Deloitte. Oh no, he's checking. He said.
No, nothing additional from myself then. Just came on given you been mentioned.
Any questions? Any further questions in the room? No. Okay. Okay. If there are no further questions, then do we declare the meeting closed? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone in the room and online, and we can declare the meeting closed.